Most people your age seem to have moved on. They scroll past the reboots without a second glance. They see the old Saturday morning lineup mentioned somewhere and keep going. Maybe they smile faintly. Maybe they don't even do that. But then there are people who, at the sight of a specific color palette, that particular washed out teal and rust, or the sound of a synthesized theme song bleeding through a cheap television speaker, feel something shift inside them. Something that isn't quite nostalgia. Something quieter and stranger than that. If you've ever wondered why those cartoons feel less like a memory and more like a room you still live in, neuroscience has something precise and unexpected to say about it. Before anything else, if Gen X animation never grabbed you that way, there's nothing missing in you. Plenty of emotionally rich, well-adjusted people feel nothing particular when they see a Hanna-Barbera background or hear a Filmation theme. That's not today's conversation. Today is for the people who do feel something and who have never quite been able to name what that something is. Here's what developmental psychology has understood for some time. The period between roughly ages 4 and 12 is when the human brain is building what neuroscientists call its foundational emotional architecture. The limbic system, your brain's emotional core, is running at full intensity during this window, yet without the regulatory influence of the prefrontal cortex, which won't fully mature until your mid-20s. In practical terms, this means everything you experienced in childhood wasn't just felt, it was absorbed, without filtration, without context, straight into the architecture of who you were becoming. Where researchers studying autobiographical memory have documented what they call the reminiscence bump. The well-established phenomenon where memories formed between childhood and early adulthood carry disproportionate emotional weight for the rest of a person's life. But what makes Gen X animation specifically unusual isn't only that it was experienced young, it's the specific conditions surrounding that experience. Gen X children were, statistically, among the most unsupervised generations in modern Western history. Latchkey culture wasn't an edge case. It was a norm. A significant portion of those children came home to empty houses, turned on the television, and sat alone with these cartoons for hours at a time. And here's what matters neurologically. The brain encodes memories formed during solitude differently. There's no social noise shaping the experience. No one else's reaction mediating your own. The emotional imprint enters clean, and it enters deep. For people who don't carry this kind of attachment, who feel the pull toward childhood media but express it through collecting or ironic detachment or simply not thinking about it, their relationship with the past is being processed through different psychological structures. Some people anchor early experience in shared cultural identity. The cartoon becomes a generational badge rather than a private emotional space. That's not a shallower response. It's a different architecture entirely. The people who feel these old animations most intensely tend to derive meaning from internal continuity rather than external confirmation. They don't need someone else to validate that something mattered. They already know it mattered because they can still feel the quality of light in the room where they watched it. For these people, a cartoon isn't nostalgia, it's evidence. Evidence of a self that existed before the world had much to say about who you should become. There are many reasons you might carry this. It might be the solitude. It might be that those cartoons were the most consistent presence in an unpredictable household. It might be that the themes running through that era, low-budget absurdism, unresolved plots, a world that didn't quite explain itself, resonated with something you were already sensing as a child but had no language for. None of these need further justification. Here's the part that tends to reframe everything. The brain doesn't store memories the way a hard drive stores files. It stores them bundled with the physiological and emotional context of the moment they were formed. So, when a specific piece of music or a visual style or even a particular quality of televised static activates those old neural pathways, and what you're briefly re-entering isn't the cartoon. It's the nervous system state of a child who is alone, absorbing the world without instruction, and finding something in a flickering screen that felt, without explanation, like company. That's not sentiment, that's documented neuroscience. So, if these programs still pull at something in you, If a deliberately low-budget animation from 4 decades ago can still produce a feeling you struggle to name, you're not being irrational. You're not romanticizing the past. You are experiencing the precise, documentable way human memory works when it forms under conditions of emotional intensity and solitude. Your nervous system learned something during those hours alone with that screen, and it has not forgotten. You're not stuck. You're not behind. You're someone who encoded the world more deeply than the world expected. And those cartoons were simply there when you did it. If something in that landed for you, this is exactly the kind of psychology we explore on the Glitch Psychology. You'll find more here when you're ready.